Before we get started on part 2 from grade 3, let's take a look back at part 1. As a quick summary, let's just take a peek at some of the concepts that we learned. First thing we learned was about what a fraction is, what a unit fraction is. We talked about a denominator and a numerator, and that a fraction is built by using copies of a unit fraction. We then talked about how to use fractions to measure things, which also started to make students comfortable with number lines greater than 1. We talked about how to partition number lines, very important skill to be able to do. We worked with, what I like to do is I like to begin by, again, emphasizing with students what's going on with a number line. And I like to bring this number line up because it has some emojis and the students can feel pretty comfortable with this. And I talk about how we can have number lines going on, and for infinity with whole numbers, we can also have number lines go on for in infinity in the left with negative numbers, but we'll just worry about whole numbers for now. And I asked the students, can they guess the numbers hidden by the emojis? And they all can do this. They're very comfortable doing this. Then we talk about what's happening, what they notice that's happening when we do this as we move to the right. And they will all say the numbers are getting bigger. And they're right. So I want them to understand that they're going to use this concept in this area, in between whole numbers. We have fractions in between whole numbers. They are numbers just like these whole numbers are. They're just in between the whole numbers. And the same rule applies. As you move farther right, the value gets greater. Okay. So again, I try to reiterate that idea. Again, it's something that they talked about in the beginning, but I would always want to go back to that. So in part 2, this is where the concepts start to get a little deeper. And this is where if you have a 4th grader, they need to have this basic understanding before they can really do a lot of the things that they're going to be asked to do in 4th grade and 5th grade. So the first one is equivalence. And what they're going to do is they're going to use fraction strips. These fraction tiles are so great. They're great visuals, first of all, but they're also great to use in class. And what it does is it allows the students to see that two fractions can name the same part of the whole. We can actually stack them on top of one another and see that they take up the same area of the whole. So we see here that 1/2 and 2/4 are equivalent to one another. We see here that 1/2 and 2/4 and 4/8 are equivalent to one another. And then we start talking a little bit about this relationship that they're starting to see between those numbers. So what you're starting to notice is that I have my 1/2, and I know that's equal to 2/4, and I know that 4/8 are equivalent because that's what I'm seeing here. Then we can start to talk about this multiplicative relationship happening between the numerator and the denominator with all of these fractions. So knowing that we have a multiplicative relationship where I'm multiplying this denominator by 2, I can probably ask a student to tell me how many 16ths would be equivalent to 1/2, 2/4, 4/8. And they would be able to say, okay, if it's a times 2 relationship here, then I would say it's 8. Okay, so we start to see that relationship happening with the fractions. We start to see the equivalence. I would also then bring the tiles together, and I would start to ask them to see all the other ones that are equivalent to 1/2. So we're going to look here. We're going to see the 2/4 again. We're going to see the 3/6. We're going to see the 4/8. We're going to see the 5/10. We're going to see the 6/12. But we're also going to see that we don't have tiles here where they don't, thirds and fifths don't have this easy halfway mark. So we're going to have a little discussion about that. it's kind of that we're going to say that this is kind of like 1.5 of another, and this is 2.5 of another. So it's between 2 and 3. So just to get them to see that, because it's going to become important in the very near future. Then we start talking about other fractions. We start talking about the thirds, and we start to ask them, what do you notice? Which ones are equivalent as far as thirds? So let's see some of them. We have 1/3 is equivalent to 2/6, and that's equivalent to 4/12. So what's the multiplicative relationship happening here? Multiplying by 3 all the time, okay, when it's equivalent to 1/3. And then we move on to other fractions like fourths. And again, we start to just show them some of the ones that are equivalent to 1/4. So for here, they would see we have 2/8 and 3/12. Let's see that. 1/4 equals to 2/8 equals 3/12. What's the multiplicative relationship happening between the numerator and denominator? Yeah, it's times 4. So this works for all of these. 2 times 4 is 8, 3 times 4 is 12. Could you tell me what it would be if the denominator was 20? If you know that the numerator is going to be multiplied by 4 to get the denominator. Exactly, it would be 5. Okay, so again, this is what the students are learning. They're moving through this and trying to find some equivalent fractions. They're using number lines because they don't always have fraction tiles available. They also have to use other tools that they can create themselves. Now, we move on to comparing fractions, and we're going to do that in a few different ways. The first way is to compare fractions with common denominators. This one's fairly simple to do, and we're just going to review something very quickly. If this was a number line, this would be 0, this would be 1, and we know that when we are moving farther to the right, the value is greater. So, which one is farther to the right? 4/6 is farther. So 4/6 has a greater value than 2/6. Common denominators, that's pretty easy for our kids to do. Next one is one that our students aren't all that familiar with, and maybe you aren't either. We'll see. This one is about common numerators. Interesting, common numerators. What this is this is an understanding about the size of a unit fraction. And this is where students, if you're going to see an area where students, you start to see a separation in students and their understanding of fractions, it's right here, right now. This is why. If they see 8 and they see 6 and they say 1/8 is greater than 1/6, they're going back to their knowledge of whole numbers and just where 8's bigger than 6. So that tells me that they really don't understand what a unit fraction is, and that a 1/6 size piece is bigger than a 1/8 size piece. Okay, so I would get these fraction strips and these visuals out for them so they can see it. So again, if this was a number line, 0, 1, here's where 1/6 falls, here's where 1/8 falls. Which one is greater? 1/6. So whenever you have common numerators, the fraction with the lesser denominator is always greater. So again, let me repeat that. Whenever you have common numerators, the fraction with the lower denominator is always greater. So again, let's look at this. Look at where 5/6 lands. Look at where 5/8 lands. Here's our number line. Sorry about that. Here's our number line. Look at where they fall. Which one's farther to the right? 5/6. So again, if you have common numerators, the fraction with the fraction that has the lesser denominator is always the greater fraction. All right. Next way that we can compare numbers, we can just use the benchmark of 1/2. So where does it fall on the 1/2 line? So 2/6 versus 2/3. Now, I could go back to our visual of, if you remember, all the tiles put together, but I can also just get the idea here with a number line. So here's my halfway mark. And where would 2/6 be? Well, I know if this is 3/6, that's the halfway mark. So 2/6 has to be over on this side. And if I'm thinking of thirds, now again, thirds, we're not going to have a halfway mark. We're going to have something here. We're going to have something here. So the halfway mark, if I was going to just throw one on a number line for thirds, even though you wouldn't see it, it would be somewhere right around there. So where would 2/3 fall? 2/3 is going to fall over here. So again, you're just using the benchmark of 1/2. Which side does it fall on? Which side of the number line does it fall on? Which side of the halfway mark does it fall? So sometimes what I like to do is I like to bring out the emojis again. And I'd like to say which one is greater, the thumb or the backpack? And they'll say the backpack because it's closer to 1. And then I would ask them, okay, which one is greater than greater than 1/2 and close to 1/2? And they would say the clown. I would say which one, I would probably eliminate these, by the way. I would say which one has a value of less than 1/2, and they would say the ring. And they can instinctively see this. So I mean, I can draw the 1/2 mark, and again, I would probably get rid of these. And I would say, well, hey, which one has the greater value here? And again, they would say the clown, and I would say which one has a lesser value, and they would say the ring. And if I press them, I say, and why? And so, well, the clown's on the one side of the halfway mark and the ring's on the other. If they can tell me that, that's exactly what I want to hear. Okay? Because that just leads me into them being able to understand this concept. So let's look at two fractions. 5/8 and then 2/6. All I'm interested in is where they would be put on the number line. Are they less than 1/2 or greater than 1/2? 5/8. Where do you think it should fall? Over here, right? Because we know 4/8 is the halfway mark. So 5/8 would be over here. Let's think of 6, 2/6. Well, you know 3/6 is here. So 2/6 has to be over here. So I know that 5/8 is greater than 2/6. The last lesson that your student in 3rd grade would learn is that we can have equivalent fraction names for whole numbers. So again, we have 2/2 and 4/4 can also name the whole number of 1. 4/2 and 8/4 can also name the whole number of 2. 6/2 and 12/4 can name the whole number of 3. And we can talk about the relationship that's going on between the denominator and the numerator. So that's pretty much it for 3rd grade fractions. And the next one would be topic 7 for grade 4, and that's about factors and multiples. Be on the lookout for that video. It'll be, again, named topic 7, factors and multiples.